Okay, bought a school bus, 2002 GMC Thomas school bus. It's got the 6.5 turbo diesel engine in it. Bought it for about $1,700 with blown head gasket. So we'll see if I can replace that. Engine seems, I guess, okay. Really don't know. There's the head. Right there. Another head on the other side. So I've done a head before, but it was on a Jeep. So I bet this is a diesel engine. Never done that before, but we'll see how it goes. First thing to do, I think, is just kind of take all the basic stuff off of it. Air intake manifolds and everything like that. I'm really worried about the exhaust head bolts. This flange is crap. The exhaust over there and all those bolts are really bad, so hopefully those don't snap on me and the head bolts don't. But other than that, the interior is kind of halfway done. The previous owner had this kind of done, and he was driving it up over a pass in Colorado, and it overheated and blew the heads, and took it to the shop and left it there, and I bought it from the shop. Got hardwood floors, shower. A lot of the electrical seems to be already done. I don't know much about electrical stuff, which worries me. A bunch of wires there. But yeah, for 02 GMC Thomas School Bus 1700, doesn't seem too bad, I think. But we'll see. I'll keep everyone updated. Wish me luck. Alright, more progress on the bus. Basically what I'm trying to do is I'm going to remove this front top bracket here, all the associated parts connected with it, to remove this, to remove the radiator, to give me more room to remove the heads that are in there. There's bolts here. I took the bumper off. Don't mess with those 4 little bolts that surround, just do the bumper for this one. That one. There's some electricals that you're going to have to unplug for the headlight for this guy, so just unplug that stuff. Label everything correctly. What I do is I do this. I just kind of wrap some duct tape around it and then put A or B and then what it's going to. So I'll do the receiving and end of taking that. So slow progress, but slowly getting it off. These coolant lines were kind of a pain. Just hit them with some PB Blaster and some heat, and eventually they broke off. You're gonna have to remove these, get the coolant lines off, because this is all connected to this. This whole thing is gonna come out, so I'm about to take that out and get closer to the engine. All right, thanks for watching. All right, so I thought you could take this whole assembly off with the 3 coolers connected to the bracket and this plastic thing in the headlights. I thought you could just take this all off, but it seems like the plastic or that goes underneath the radiator, so it seems like I'm gonna have to take the radiator out, lift it out, and then get this whole assembly. So you'll have to remove that coolant line. There's a hose down there, and then there's 2 other, well, there was a coolant line here that's going to the front coolers, and you have this hose here. And then down below you have another 2 bolts, one underneath that, both all coolant lines. So just remove those, I think, and then you'll be able to get the radiator out, to get everything else out, but we'll see. Alright, radiator's out, but this front assembly bracket thing, I don't know the name of, still won't come out because it seems it is attached here. So I need to undo these bolts, it seems, to get this guy out. So maybe I didn't have to take the radiator out first. Maybe I could have done this, and that would have came out, and then I would have been able to get to the radiator. So that makes more sense. I'm dumb, but whatever. Learning progress. So I'll remove these. This will come out, and then I will have access to the engine. Yay! And it's out. Yay! Cool. Closer to the engine. Coolant lines everywhere. So now I just have to kind of take everything off, alternator, air intake manifold, belt, basically everything to get back to there and over there. But yeah, so far so good. Progress. Show the inside again. It's a 02 GMC Thomas school bus that's sitting on an 02 Savanna GMC 3500 frame, chassis, and engine. Said before, kind of got it from the guy and he blew a head gasket, but he was more of a carpenter, not a mechanic, and I'm more of a mechanic and not a carpenter, so I kind of got lucky because a lot of the wiring and electrical is already done, shower, plumbing, which is pretty neat. Hot water, cold water, kitchen. Yeah, so just hopefully our place has heads and the gaskets and she'll start, but work in progress. And finding a repair manual for this is a little difficult because Thomas company that produces these, basically I think they just buy them from GM with the frame and the engine, and then they plop their design and everything on top of it, so you can't really get a repair manual from Thomas. But typing in the VIN number with GM, basically it told me that it was an 02 Savanna 3500, so it's basically the bus, 3.5 turbo diesel, or no, sorry, not 3.5, 6.5 turbo diesel, yeah, duh. Huh. But yeah, the work continues. I'll keep putting them up. Alright, so front end is pretty much kind of still out. Need to take the alternator and everything's out, but I'm gonna work from the inside for a second because I have to take all this wiring out. This guy, I think that's the turbo, so this I think is the air intake manifold, maybe. Yeah, this one right here. So remove this to get a better view, and then just, yeah, I'll get everything piece by piece. And it's off. It's just those 3 bolts on each side. There's the turbo. These, I think, are the air intake manifolds, and this is some metal housing thing. I don't know. Still need to buy the repair manual and get my nomenclature down, but until then. But yeah, it seems like the air intake from the front goes down to this turbo. Turbo does this thing. And so yeah, I'm gonna have to take these 2 air intake manifolds off, this guy, all the wiring, the hoses, to get to the cylinder block here and on the other side. Alright. Okay, 6.5 turbo diesel. I think that I've figured out how to get basically this turbo, because I'm not going to be able to, I think the bolts are so rusted from the exhaust manifold into the head. I'm trying to take the heads off instead of worrying about those tight spaces and snapping all the bolts off. Tried to remove this contraption. Still waiting on the service repair manual to know what this is exactly called. The turbo's connected to it. I removed that air turbo housing on top. I thought that I could just remove this front part of this assembly and then it would come off, but turns out that's not right. You just, I think, undo these 2 bolts, one there, here, and the turbo is attached to this guy, and I should be able to remove this whole thing out. And hopefully I undid this little bracket coupling in there, so this should be able to come out. And so basically, I guess this whole thing connect to the exhaust manifold will just stay, so I don't have to deal with that, and then remove everything else. I guess we'll see, but yep, this is where I'm at. Yay, it worked. Okay, so it was just those 2 bolts, turbo, and this guy came straight out, so I think I'm okay. I don't have to remove exhaust manifolds anymore, so now it's just air intake manifolds. I think that's the fuel injection pump, I think. And then remove, the glow plug control module and all the little things, and work my way to the valve covers, and then get the head bolts off, and we'll see. But okay, but yeah, that's how that's done. Alright, more progress on the bus. I removed the power steering pulley, the AC compressor, which was over there. There's just 4 bolts for the AC compressor. Super easy. The power steering pulley was a pain in the ass, because when I took the AC compressor off, I realized that I needed the serpentine belt to create tension to keep that pulley in place while I pulled that out. The tool that you use for that I got from O'Reilly's, pulley puller installer kit. Just pretty straightforward, just look online. The whole goal is to take this bracket off just so I can get to the cover heads and everything like that. So that's what I've done so far on the outside. I need to take off this guy, which seems water pump goes to here. I don't know what that's called, and an alternator and everything like that. So another day, another part. Off. Thanks. Bye. Alright, more progress. I had to remove this bracket. So this bracket holds the alternator, which kind of fits right here. I'm wiggling my thumb. This idler, or the serpentine tensioner, and whatever the world that is. And it also, I had to pull a pulley from this bracket, so it gives me room to get that head out. And so there was a center bolt here, and another bolt there, and then 2 nuts I had to take out there, and then that center bolt right there I had to take out. They're just sitting in there. But I had to remove that left bracket so I can have room, I guess, once I get everything off, to slide that head out. Maybe this way, I don't know, I might slide it out inside the bus. We will see. But I had to do the same thing on this left bracket as well, so all the bolts off are on that, but it's difficult to take this bracket off without getting this guy off. They're kind of like wedged in together. And this, it's from the water pump clutch fan. This pumps and I guess pushes coolant through the heads there. So I got to get this guy off to get this bracket off, and once I get these guys off, I should have a lot of room to get those heads out. Important to note, it's probably easier to take this clutch fan out in the beginning, just to give you more room to work around it. I'll probably take it off as I'm putting everything back together, but for right now I'm leaving her in. So yeah, I'm just trying to do as much as work on the front as I can before cold weather hits. It's November in Colorado, just outside of Boulder, so it doesn't get super freezing, but enough to be miserable if you're working. Oh, something's leaking. I don't know. Alright, yep, this is where I'm at. Alright, both brackets have been removed, so the AC compressor went up here, that bracket, steering pump, pulley, all that stuff's been removed. Get to the head, left side, left bracket's been removed, alternator, everything associated with that pulley down there, which I don't know what it does. To remove this guy, this is that water pump, north water pump assembly thing. There was 2 bolts right here. I thought at first you couldn't get that right AC bracket off without it, but you have to, because there's another bolt right there and right there, so you gotta do those 2 bolts and then undo this hose, and then there's 2 other bolts right there on that guy, and then just connect this hose, and this guy comes out, and I will be a lot closer. So I think after that it's just that fuel injection pump right there, air intakes, valve covers, yeah, that fuel injection stuff, and then yeah, and then the heads. All right. Okay, So the objective for today is to get these air intakes off. But first I need to remove all these brackets. So there's a lot of brackets on here attaching that guy. That's my oil dipstick. Because I think I'm gonna have to remove this fuel. I've said that, kind of repeat myself a lot, but yeah, the fuel injector pump and all these lines. So I got to remove basically everything here. So this bracket bolt, that bolt, which gets this off, but it's just a lot of wires and things I need to detach this guy to get this module off. So I'm basically gonna take this guy off and pull it aside and get all these bolts off, and hopefully everything will come out. We'll see. All right. Okay, removing the glow plug controller module. There's these 3 bolts on this bracket that bolt up to the air intake down here, down there. So you just, and then this hose, it's like a breather hose or something. This guy's going into the valve cover. But yeah, it's just for these, it's just these 3 bolts brackets, and this guy slides out. I don't know if I'm going to unplug these or not, but okay. Side note, super things that help me are good breaker bar. So there's always these bolts back in here that are pretty tight, but if I just throw that wrench on there, get a good breaker bar, add some torque to it, boom, pops right off. No problem. Another is duct tape. So everything that I take off as far as wiring, I just wrap it around and write, what it connects to. So this goes to here, this, I'd label A, or I don't know, try to label it to where you can at least have an idea. Because once you unplug everything and put everything back in, start to plug stuff up, it can get a little confusing, but yeah, that's what I do. Alright. So this guy got removed, glow plug control module. It mounts on top of these guys right here. There's another bracket back here that has 2 bolts, one right there to remove this thing. I don't know. Just this is all attached to this air intake that I get to get off. But the fun stuff is going to be these fuel lines. So these guys are pretty easy to break off. Just hit it with some PB Blaster. PB Blaster and heat is your best friend, so always hit it with some PB Blaster. Give it a good crank if it doesn't work, put the breaker bar on it, and if you feel like you're going to strip or something that's too much, torch it, heat it up, and then it'll come. But these I didn't have to do that, but that's just kind of any bolt in general. But yeah, these came out, and then these things, these like cloth, they're going from, looks like fuel injector, they're just like little hoses. So I don't know, that confused me for a second, but they just pulled right out. So I'm going to try to undo these, pull these hoses out. These 2 lines go through this air intake. So the fuel injector pump is right there. There's 8 of them, and each one goes to each cylinder. But these come through and pass through this air intake and then come down into there. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to remove them there. I guess just unbolt them there and wiggle them out and number everything. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to remove all these fuel lines. But other than that, it's not that bad. If I just get these fuel lines off, get all the stuff removed from the air intakes, and then the head bolts, and should be good. And there's one head bolt, but there's always like a head bolt here, and then once I take the valve cover off, I think there's other head bolts in there you gotta torque off. The work continues. Yeah. Okay. Getting back to get these fuel line nuts off. The top 3 or 4 aren't bad, but the bottom ones are extremely difficult. So I bought these little guys, and they helped me kind of get in there and remove, fits over and remove those nuts. I haven't gotten the bottom ones, but that tool seems to help a lot better. So I'm kind of just loosening these fuel lines, coming over here to the fuel injectors, loosening these fuel lines, removing these little black breather tube things and getting those off, and then have the exhaust manifold bolts somewhat loosened, and then I'm going to kind of wiggle this off and see if I can get a good angle to get down to the bottom ones, or maybe use that tool if I can get down. But it's kind of a puzzle working and getting all this stuff off and getting it out, but that's where I'm at. Okay, air intake is out. Lesson learned. Just remove the damn air intake and then remove the fuel injector lines. It gives you a lot more room. I'm an idiot. For some reason I thought they came out together, or there was something in between there keeping it in. I don't know. But yeah, remove the air intakes first, then you can remove your fuel lines and your fuel injector pump. That's right there in the middle. So I just did that air intake. I'm going to do that one, remove that pump, remove the valve covers, and then push rods and rocker arms, remove the head bolts, and then I'm halfway. Awesome. Alright, that's where I'm at. Okay, air intakes are out, so now I'm removing these two fuel lines right here. And there's some hoses up front that they were connected to. Get this fuel line off. Get this valve cover off. Get that valve cover off. Push rods and rocker arms out. Head bolts out. And then head should come out. Alright, hopefully we'll get this done today. That's where I'm at. Alright, here it is. Valve cover is off. This sealant right here, this thing was glued basically on here with that gasket sealant, because this has it on there. It kind of bent, wedging getting this guy off. So you know, once you remove all the bolts, this guy's you're gonna have to tap this and wiggle it and try to. I got a little flat header here and kind of tapped it in and wiggled it and kind of worked around the edges, and it finally came off. I bent it a little bit, but I'll hammer it back. I think it'll be okay as long as I hammer it back, and then put some gasket, you know, a gasket or a sealant, silicone or whatever sealant around it, and it'll be fine. But it's off. So now it's just the rocker arms and I think push rods, and then the head bolts. One right there, one right there, one on the outside. And then wiggle the head off. Alright, work continues. So they're off. Valve covers, both sides. So now I just need to remove, I think, these two bolts here that's holding this bar and these rocker arms on top. So I think it's these two bolts. Pull the rocker arms off. Remove the push rods. I'm going to I guess record and label which cylinder these guys are going into and put them back the same, because that's what I did before and it worked. So I don't think there's any trick to this other than when you're putting them back down, just make sure you get the right torque specs on these bolts. Valves are right there, but yeah, so I think it's just push rods, rocker arms, and then head bolts off, slide the cylinder off, be halfway there. Alright, rocker arms and push rods out. It's pretty easy, just those two bolts, that rod connecting all the rocker arms, pull that out, push rods, kind of have them over there, kind of, I don't know, kind of how I pulled them out, whatever. And now it's just head bolts. Here's the schematic I drew out. Those are my PB peanut butter sandwiches. So yeah, I found this manual online. It's the 6.5 turbo diesel, but the air intake and turbos and a few things are different, but the block and heads are the same. So shoot me a message if you want this. It's pretty easy to find, or it's kind of easy to find online, but you got to know what you're looking at. But these are the sequences in which you bolt down everything, so I'm just going to do a reverse of that. There's 17 bolts. I'm starting at 17. I'm going to loosen that one, then 16, then 15, then 14, and so on and so forth, and then just slowly work your way out. Putting them in, you do this tightening sequence so you don't warp the head and it tightens down correctly. I guess, evenly throughout the head. But you know, I'm just going to do the opposite of that. And hopefully I'll get this head out today. I don't know, hopefully it's not too heavy. And I can wiggle it out. I don't know which side I'm going to try to get it out. Probably the back, because I left the clutch fan on. It might be kind of a pain in the ass to work around that. So I might try to wiggle it out the back, but I'm kind of worried about these kind of getting in the way, but I don't know. I'll wiggle her out somehow. Alright, that's where I'm at. Okay, head bolts are out. So all 17 of them. It's like a top row, middle row, bottom row. It wasn't too bad, you know, just kind of put a breaker bar on it and went slow, and they all came out pretty easy, so that is good. So now I just need to pry the head off the block. I did that. I kind of like started to do it, and I noticed like some coolant coming out. Probably not a good sign, but we'll see. Hopefully we'll get this head off and see if there's a crack, and hopefully there's not a crack in the block, and then I still need to remove push rods and rock arms and head bolts and head on that one. But I'm gonna do a test run on this guy, so that's where I'm at. Alright, cylinder head off. Some antifreeze in there. I don't know if it happened while I was taking the head off or what. I need to. The block looks okay. I don't see any like distinct cracks. The head. This head looked. I don't know. I don't see anything, but maybe the gasket was bad. The gasket didn't have any noticeable, but I don't know. Like how small has to be small, or maybe it's something else. But I don't know, maybe the other head will be a little more visible as far as a crack or seeing a problem causing the head gasket or head to be bad. Alright, one head out, one to go. Alright, so I just undid all the bolts and I just propped. I got the head. So when you do that, a lot of coolant's going to leak out. I had a bucket under there, but it looks like I'm going to have to clean all that up. Great. But yeah, the other head's out, so now I'm just wiggling this guy out. All the bolts on this head came out fine, so it's just get a good breaker bar, and I think it was 18 millimeter for the head bolts, and they came out pretty good. So now it's wiggling this guy out and get new heads. But now I think I'm at a stopping point, which is weird until I get the heads done. Alright, to be continued. And they're out. Woo! Alright. Well, kind of halfway done, I think. But it was a challenge. I mean, it's just all labor. It's just getting everything off and getting back to those, getting the head bolts off. You know, it's just a lot of moving and finagling, and that's why it costs so much at shops. It's just a crap ton of labor. Been working on and off this thing for a few weeks now, but I mean, that's just a little time here and there. But they're out, so that is cool. This side of the block looks okay. I don't know. I didn't see any distinct cracks on the other head, but I was talking to a guy and he said they could be near the valves or something, so I don't know. I'll have him take them apart and take a look at it, and then I guess he's going to get a new head with cast and maybe replace what he can off of these guys. But that's it for now. At a stopping point, which is weird. The bus is just full of parts now, just everywhere. Yay. Yeah, I need to organize in here. It's like crap, but alright. That's where I'm at, and hopefully next video will be me putting the new heads back on. We'll see.